And thank you very much with the UNEG team for having us here. I think it's coming at a really opportune moment when member state processes are coming to conclusion with the Open Working Group, the Financing Group, and the one on technologies. Still much to do, and so it's really exciting that we begin this discussion now. Of course, we did begin it with the President of the General Assembly speaking to the accountability framework that we would like to see, and that is since going out to the regions to get a reflection on that. We have a huge transformative agenda that we have to attend to, and the country level is going to be key to its success. If we can't implement what we bring from New York down to countries and learn the lessons of the MDGs, then it would have been pointless, all the work of taking the lead and owning this. But I think that what we're seeing so far is giving us indications that this is about to become a reality. Clearly, the financing aspect of this also makes for accountability a very big issue. As we spoke to the accountability framework, the headliner was monitoring and accountability, and evaluation was missing. As we go down to the country level, we have monitoring and evaluation. Very little evaluation done, lots of monitoring. Monitoring gets you out into the field. Monitoring gets you perhaps the DSA. Evaluation is hard work in a back room trying to understand what it is that you've received and to make sense of it against a number of asks that we have in the agendas that we put. The key challenge I think we have now, recognizing that we do need an accountability framework, lesson learned from the MDGs, is that still what doesn't change is that the development framework is not a legally binding one. It has to be one that relies on political will, persuasion, and for which we use this as a mechanism to try, without going across the red line of that legally binding framework, make happen, and very difficult to do. We know that evaluation is serving this function because it will provide a key tool for assessing how our policies, programs, and projects will contribute, hopefully, to the development of concrete results of the post-2015 development agenda. But it will also, we hope, establish clear incentives for effectiveness, transparency, and accountability. This is a tall order for the post-2015 development agenda. It's a transformative one. It's one that's going to take time to take root. We are talking about finishing off the MDGs, but setting an ambition that will take time, how we implement sustainable development on the ground, and the different skill sets that we will need from whether it's the UN system facilitating a country or a group of sector ministers trying to grapple with what they have to do with their vision and implementation plan. It will all take time, and so I think here it's a good opportunity that we start early, evaluating, taking stock on what we've done so far, and making sure that what we have in place will be evidence-based assessments for what works, what doesn't, why, how to put it in place before we're too further down the road of things going wrong, righting the wrongs in time. And it should be seen as a centerpiece of the learning process. I'd speak to 2-3 more points here that I think are important considerations as this evolves. One is that how key data is going to be, data and statistics are going to be to all of this. And for a larger part of the experience we had of monitoring and evaluating our debt relief in Nigeria, that was what was absent. Many a survey, many assumption, presumption, perception, but the concrete evidence in baseline data was very much absent, and so it was very difficult for us to make some of the judgment calls that we needed to and then point to the evidence, particularly when you're trying to make a case in Parliament and go back for additional resources and show why things worked or they didn't work. Very difficult. So it's really important that the data revolution that the high-level panel spoke about and to which UNDESA has done so much work already on, I think that has to be brought right up front as a priority to ensuring that we have it in place as we start the next development agenda. I think what is also important is that we pay lots of attention to how we design the tools for evaluation. for monitoring, for evaluation, all incredibly important, and sometimes we take these for granted. We find lots of our experts doing this in perhaps places very far from where the evaluation is done. So the participation of those that are evaluating what for, the independence of those evaluations really are about the tools and how we design them and set them up for the answers that we expect from the field. And that brings me again to the side of skill sets and capacities, not to underestimate that they are far and few between. I think as the last speaker alluded, you walk into many of our institutions and find that there is an absence of that, and what you would take here in New York or perhaps in the UN system as not very complicated becomes very complicated down at the country level. We had a number of tools that were, for instance, designed for us in Europe to evaluate education. By the time it came down to the country level, we were really good at collecting the data from the field. And then it sat in heaps and heaps and heaps because there was just an inability to find the skill set that could evaluate this and then feed it into this, I would say, an encyclopedia of information that we needed to take back to the global level so that we would be properly evaluated for progress made towards MDGs. So I think the designs of the tool, the skill sets, the capacities, all really important. Building institutional capacity, important. It's fine to have the consultants, they can actually add value to that, but in terms of the institution, we need to see much more of that happen. It will mean that this agenda really looks at the partnerships and the stakeholders involved. That business as usual won't be what we will need at this time. We will have new partners that come into this like business, new demands on the development agenda, environment, the economic agenda, and they will require new partnerships and stakeholders. In particular, how government operates. I mean, government, again, looking at the many ways that it evaluates the work that it does, but perhaps reaching out for the independence of that feedback to civil society. Reaching out to consultants who can also bring another dimension of that independence to civil society, to the results. But of particular note are parliamentarians, really finding that we find a good balance between the roles and responsibilities because parliamentarians have oversight. And that also is another way of bringing some independent feedback to it. We worked on this in Nigeria for the debt relief. It was important for donors to see what we did with the gains of that. It was important for Nigerians to see what we did with it. It took us over 2 years to design a monitoring and evaluation framework. Basically, the tools took time to design and find the independence of that. The other was the partnerships between civil society and consultants to try to get the information back. We had decided that we wanted not government to do it, but civil society to go out and tell us if, in fact, the services we said we were delivering were having impact in the communities. That required a different skill set that we took for granted and didn't realize wasn't there. But we also had huge governance issues around the use of our resources in building infrastructure. So we took up the private sector and consultants to evaluate whether we got value for money, whether, in fact, the primary healthcare center was built to last more than 6 months. And then if that primary healthcare center would in fact have the infrastructure that was required, you'd be surprised how many primary healthcare centers are built without power, without water, without sanitation. Really quite incredible that we expected that to deliver on reducing maternal mortality or child health. So again, really not underestimating how long it takes to put this in place and to find the right key, to find the right stakeholders to be involved in this. Finally, I think we need, for country commitment, I think the policy environment have embedded monitoring and evaluation and the funding that's needed to carry it out. Can't underestimate how much this costs. It all sounds as though we do it at a desk, but it requires resources, and those resources are often absent. But these must be embedded within the plans that we have so that they will get the funding for them. I think roles and responsibilities, it's key to define that right from the very beginning, from the onset. people's roles and responsibility in this. I think not having that clear has led to a lot of duplication, a lot of tensions about who's doing what, and government's anxiety about this being a good thing for it, and not an attack on it. Last but not least, I think it's already been reinforced here, the political commitment that is needed to make this work. At the helm of affairs, we have to want to see that we deliver with the resources that we have to the people that we owe. I'm going to end by quoting the Secretary General, because I think this is so real to what we face at the country level. Evaluation is not easy, nor is it popular, but it is essential. The current constrained budgetary climate makes it more important than ever. All of us share a responsibility to strengthen this important function. Thank you.
Thank you.